the Federal Reserve. There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve. There is an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
Good morning, Bitcoin. Today is Monday, May 25th, 2020. My name is Thomas Hunt, and this is the World Crypto Network. The price of Bitcoin is down 3.35% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 8,788, a high of 9,089, and a low of 8,620. Volume was relatively high for a holiday Monday, with 8,077 Bitcoins trading hands. The market continues to lean margin long, with 77% of the market heading that direction. That's $1 for 11,366 Satoshis. Let's get started today with a reading from Charles Bukowski. I met a genius. I met a genius on the train today. About 6 years old. He sat beside me, and as the train ran down along the coast, we came to the ocean, and then he looked at me and said, "It's not pretty." It was the first time I'd realized that. Another one that was a short one. Beer bottle. A very miraculous thing just happened. My beer bottle flipped over backwards and landed on its bottom on the floor. And I have it set up on the table to phone down. But the photos were not so lucky today, and there's a small slit along the leather of my left shoe. But it's all very simple. We cannot acquire too much. There are laws we know nothing of. All manner of nudges sent to set us to burning or freezing. What sets the blackbird in the cat's mouth is not for us to say, or why some men are jailed like pet squirrels, while others muzzle in enormous breasts through endless nights. This is the task and the terror, and we are not taught why. Still, it's lucky the bottle landed straight side up, and although I have one of wine and one of whiskey, the foretells somehow a good night, and perhaps tomorrow my nose will be longer. New shoes, less rain, more poems. My Lady Godiva. She came to my place drunk, riding a deer up on the front porch. So many women want to save the world, but can't keep their own kitchens straight. But me. We went inside where I lit 3 red candles, poured the wine, and I took notes on her. Latitude behind, longitude in front, and the rest, amazing. A woman such as this could find a zinnia in Hot Springs, Arkansas. We ate venison for 3 weeks. Then she slept with the landlord to help pay the rent. Then I found her a job as a waitress. I slept all day, and when she came home, I was full of the most brilliant conversation that she adored so much. She died quickly one night, leaving the world much the way it had been. Now I get up early and go down to the loading docks and wait for cabbages, oranges, potatoes to fall from the truck or to be thrown away. By noon, I have eaten and am asleep, dreaming of paying the rent with numbered chunks of plastic issued by a better world. So there you go, Charles Bukowski, Burning in Water, Drowning in Flame. Let's get you started today. Give everyone a chance to thumbs up the show. Give us a share. Subscribe if you haven't already below. I've heard 40% of the people who watch this show are not subscribed. That's interesting. We have a very special treat for you today. Still in the plastic wrap. As you know, if a book is in the plastic wrap, that means it's more valuable. We have the Prince of Persia journals. Textfiles.com cost me $20. The guy linked to these. It sounds so fascinating. I just had to buy it. So Prince of Persia journals coming up on the Thomas Hunt Show. But first, the price of Bitcoin, in case you missed it in the beginning. The price of Bitcoin is down 2.93% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 8,787, a high of 9,075, and a low of 8,620. That's $1 for 11,378 Satoshis. Volume was relatively high for a weekend, holiday weekend Monday, with 8,000 Bitcoin trading hands. Market continues to lean margin long, with 77% of the market heading that direction. Historical data shows that housing market will boom after the 2020 crisis, and so will Bitcoin. Hi-oh. Maybe we could even get a house. Ha-ha. That'd be nice. Buy a house with Bitcoin. Sounds cool. It says during the 90s and 2007, there was a sharp increase of housing prices following economic and financial turmoil. The dramatic growth in bank lending during this period has been held broadly responsible for these market dynamics. So if interest rates are low, and if the banks do want to spend money and lend money, and the Federal Reserve as well, we could see an explosion in home prices. Although I'm not sure if it's going to be in cities or not. That's the interesting part. Miners, gaps, and a giant short. 5 things to know for Bitcoin price now. A basket of bearish signals suggest further problems for BTC/USD, but a higher CME futures gap is among the causes for hope this week. Bitcoin faces a challenging week as $9,000 support fades and uncertainty increases after the halving. What should you look for in the coming days? Miner outflows fuel BTC price pressure. The weekend's trading saw a fresh downside for BTC/USD as bears took the market below 9,000. This followed a tough few days last week, during which miner sell-off suddenly increased dramatically. As Cointelegraph reported, miners were selling more than they earned, despite their incomes already being 50% lower due to the halving 2 weeks ago. Should that practice continues, it will pile further pressure on the price, which has already seen rejection closer to $10,000. Support levels lower in the $8,000 range may be Bitcoin's only firm hope of a bounce back if losses continue. The 200-day moving average currently sits at almost exactly $8,000. New futures gap above 9,000. Volatility since Friday opened up a modest gap in CME Group's Bitcoin futures markets, formed when 1 week's trading ends at a different point to where the next one begins. These gaps have a tendency to get filled by markets later on. This time, the gap lies between 9,065 and 9,180. Bitcoin would need to reclaim the 9,000 mark to fill it. But such behavior is common enough to remain possible, even under downward pressure. Sometimes BTC/USD rises or falls to fill a gap, before immediately reverting to nearer its previous position. Difficulty adjustments could mimic 2018. Bitcoin's fundamentals nonetheless join with mining data to produce a gloomier prognosis for market sentiment. Network difficulty, a measure of the effort required to mine on the Bitcoin blockchain, is currently on course to drop to 6.3% at its next adjustment in 10 days' time. The previous adjustment 4 days ago was 6%. A downward shift next time would produce the first back-to-back difficulty lowering since Bitcoin's price lows in December 2018. Far from a bad sign, reducing difficulty is one of Bitcoin's most important self-stabilization features. By evening out the playing field for miners, more activity is incentivized, which in turn boosts security and profitability. Meanwhile, network hash rate, a rough interpretation of the computing power dedicated to Bitcoin mining, is stabilizing at around 95 quintillion hashes per second, down from all-time highs of near 140 quintillion. Stocks climb under the shadow of major short. Major short? On traditional markets, meanwhile, fresh bearish signals are also afoot. Hitting the headlines this week in particular is a worrying short position on the S&P 500, which is currently closing in on its own 200-day moving average from below. This level is certainly worth watching, James McCormick, senior strategies at NatWest Markets, told Bloomberg. McCormick was referencing an in-house signal which is now at its most bearish since 2016. Overall, markets were trending up on Monday, with European markets following U.S. futures behavior into the open. As Cointelegraph noted, Bitcoin has been increasingly oblivious to mainstream market activity in recent weeks, a process commonly known as decoupling. Fear and greed gets cold feet again. One soothing outcome of the past week's bearish trend has been at least a softening of the crypto fear and greed index. Designed to measure the rationality of market sentiment, the 1 through 100 reading sounds the alarm, either greed or extreme greed, when readings are near 60 or higher. On Monday, the index was down at 41, a fear reading, having been as high as 56 in May. Analyst is surprised there hasn't been a large-scale attack on Bitcoin Cash yet. Me too. Early Bitcoin miner calls Craig Wright a fraud through his own addresses. Just after we had those other Bitcoin move previously saying that they'd move to a SegWit address, probably something Craig Wright would not do, we now had more Bitcoins from 2019 move with a signed message saying that he's a fraud. A message signed by 145 wallets containing Bitcoin mined during its first years calls Craig Wright a liar and a fraud. The message was published on May 25th with a list of 145 addresses and their corresponding signatures. This proves that the addresses do not belong to the person, do indeed belong to the person broadcasting the message. The message itself reads, Craig Stephen Wright is a liar and a fraud. He doesn't have the keys used to sign this message. The Lightning Network is a significant achievement. However, we need to continue to work on improving on-chain capability. Unfortunately, the solution is not just to change a constant in the code or to allow powerful participants to force out others. Cointelegraph was able to verify that all of the addresses can be found amongst the list of thousands claimed by Craig Wright in the case against Ira Kleinman. Wright has on multiple occasions failed to produce proof of ownership of the alleged fortune of Satoshi Nakamoto, who is believed to have mined more than 1 million Bitcoin. An easy way of doing so is by signing the message with a cryptographic private key of the wallet in question, which can be checked with the public key. given that Wright has tried to evade every occasion where he would have been forced to concisely prove ownership. Many in the community doubt that he owns those Bitcoins and that he is Satoshi Nakamoto. Interesting stuff. Is it a message from Satoshi? It's early blocks, but they fall outside of the Satoshi blocks. So it seems unlikely that it is Satoshi, but it is an early Bitcoiner putting some of their OPSEC on the line to warn everyone that according to this message, Craig Wright is a liar and a fraud. It was pretty exciting. Adam Back leapt to the defense of the anonymous message signer here, coming out saying that all that he has left, all that Craig Wright has left, is the Chewbacca defense. Adam Back here says, thanks to the anonymous early miner, the Tulip, meaning Craig Wright's Tulip Fund, is now down to the Chewbacca defense. Not long now. And for those of you who don't recall, the Chewbacca defense, of course, from South Park, is that parody of Johnny Cochran, if it does not fit, you must acquit. And it's just about distraction. Chewbacca is a Wookiee. 6-foot-tall Wookiee. Now, Wookiees are from Endor. Why would Wookiees want to live on Endor with those little itty-bitty Ewoks, the 3-foot-tall Ewoks? 6-foot-tall Wookiee, 3-foot-tall Ewoks. It does not make sense. If it does not make sense, you must acquit. That's the Chewbacca defense from South Park. Classic episode Chef Aid, October 7th, 1998, satirizing the O.J. Simpson murder trial. He asks the jury, why would a Wookiee like Chewbacca want to live on Endor with much smaller Ewoks when it does not make sense? He argued that if Chewbacca living on Endor does not make sense, and even if mentioning Chewbacca in the case does not make sense, then the jury must acquit. So is it time? Is it at long last over for Craig Wright? Down to nothing but distraction. And now the moment you've all been waiting for. We're going to open the Prince of Persia Diaries right here live on the air. As you know, a book that's in a plastic bag is worth more because people are sucker. They'll pay you more. So if you have a shrink wrap or if you have a plastic bag, put a book in it before you sell it. Get more money. So there it is. They've protected the book. It's fresh. It's right here. These are the journals of the man who made Prince of Persia. Ooh, hear the spine snap. Oh, never been opened before. Pretty interesting stuff. You can see the journals down the center. Looks like there's some visual aids to try to help you understand what's going on here. Here, in fact, Doug told Tommy my game is going to be a smash hit. Spent much of today on hands and knees, poring with Eric over 36 snapshots spread out on the office floor, trying to reconstruct Basil Rathbone and Errol Flynn's climactic duel in Robin Hood. We really busted our brains. You can see the close-ups here of the stills that they were working on. I watched a YouTube video recently with this guy, and he said one of the things they did is they took pictures, then they masked out the pictures with tape, then they shot an inverse of the picture, then based upon that inverse, they developed the pixels in the game that became the later character that moved and ran and fought. This is early pixel art. So they really did it. They really did it by hand. Here's a good example of some of the shadow figures that I'm talking about, the way that the negative space was defined, and that negative space became the white character, the character with the sword, the character who moved and walked on the screen. Truly an amazing, very, very early game. If you haven't played the original Prince of Persia, really worth going back to. I remember it really looked like video. I mean, here's a picture of the jumping animation. You can see there. Seems pretty good. Let's see if we get closer. But you can see the jumping animation. You can see. Come on, focuser. But yeah, anyway, you can see Prince of Persia. Probably better somewhere else, but this gives you a good idea of what it's like. And this is what the journals are like. I came up with an idea for Robert's game. The goal is to rescue people who are trapped in the building. You disinfect the rooms and make it safe for them to escape. Robert, for his part, came up with a good idea for me. Solid blocks to fill up the empty spaces. It's totally changed the look of the game. Now it really looks like a dungeon. So this is the point where he first started to use these solid blocks to fill up the space. Previous, it was probably just a white lines, things to help the character walk. So interesting to read a diary like this and really see the game develop. Looks like the diary does go much deeper into the creation of kind of some of the video game, the comic books. So Prince of Persia starts off very small. The original pictures of the person running and jumping were of his brother, and then it gets very big. So pretty amazing old classic game there. You can see some of the pictures of the original photographs of his brother or another actor running and jumping, and then that would later become the character. Pretty cool stuff. You can get this on Amazon. It's called The Making of Prince of Persia. This is a special 30th anniversary edition, so it's all dressed up nicely. I think this has been out for a while. Probably a classic in computer game how-to circles. Also, remember, computer games are work of art, so it's good to see them celebrated like this, and it's good to figure out what it was like and what the guy describes when you make a big work of art like that. So, interesting stuff. Prince of Persia. Now we got to read the news. Let's see what's going on in the news. As a death historian, I feel like I'm going mad watching the United States stumble through a mass death event, pushing aside elderly folks and poor people and people of color in pursuit of normalcy, summertime, and instant gratification. We are utterly grotesque. This is horrifying. Ouch. Nailing it there. Death historian. Shout out to Andrew Solender. He says, in September, I made a plan to get a copy of the New York Times on the day I graduated college to remember how the world was on that day that I entered into it. This is not what I'd envisioned. And it was the 100,000 dead cover of the New York Times. That was his graduation day. Do these people not believe that God was covering those who died from coronavirus? And the picture says, take off your mask because God's got you covered. So there you go. I don't know about that plan. So that's one way to go, though. Christian Science, right? The invincible power of religion over science. Still more about Sessions, this time with Ann Coulter, famous right-wing commentator, now attacking the president. Ann Coulter writes, Sessions had to recuse himself, you complete blithering idiot. You did not have to go on Lester Holt's show and announce that you fired Comey over the Russian investigation. That's what got you a special prosecutor. It's great to see them eat their own, right? Even Ann Coulter can't stick with the president, calling him a blithering idiot. And here's Trump. He's just playing through. Don't mind me. Corpses, sick people, dead people. I'm just golfing. Don't mind me. Callous, inconsiderate, inhuman, a lot of people would say. And just remember, when you're supporting him, you're supporting someone who just didn't have the self-control to not go golfing. He knows what it looks like. He made fun of Obama for the same thing over much less circumstances. For Obama, it was one death. For him, it's 100,000 deaths. But then again, of course, we should quote the Russians, right? As Stalin said, when you kill one, it is a tragedy. When you kill a million, it is a statistic. So you got to get your average down. You got to lower your handicap. And this is not a good look. He says this is why many are concerned with the politicization of higher education. There's an erosion of trust in teaching, decision-making, and research that speaks painful truth to power. Research like this. And when the president was reminded by a researcher who said that 30,000 lives could have been saved if the federal government had recommended social distancing just a week earlier, 30,000 human beings would still be alive. The president doesn't apologize, doesn't say that's unfortunate, doesn't stick with his decisions. He just attacks. He attacks the university. He attacks Columbia, and he essentially attacks the veracity of the author and their studies, their scholarship, saying that Columbia is a liberal, disgraceful institution, which again, Chewbacca is a Wookiee. Look over here. Just look over here. Speaking of just look over here, it's crazy to see how Justin Sun Tron, the CEO of a company worth, I don't know, $1 billion, let himself fake a Twitter poll using tens of thousands of bots. And let's see, here on the left, he was losing. Tron 4.0 was losing to Ethereum 2.0, 72% with Ethereum. 20,000 votes had been cast. Very successful poll. And then suddenly, it flips the other way with Tron winning 59.9%. The vote table almost doubling in a single day, 21,000 new votes coming in, just enough to flip the total. So interesting tweet, interesting to see what's going out there. Of course, spoiler alert, the results of this poll are completely meaningless and don't mean anything. You win nothing. You win nothing. Remember when Trump used to criticize President Obama for golfing? So far, his golf trips this year have cost taxpayers more than $134 million. 335 years of his presidential salary. Oh, that's nice. That's nice. That's physically responsible. That's the non-aggression principle. That's not passing on your golf debt to future generations. 134 million. Trump owns Attorney General Barr, Pompeo at State Department, Kushner at FEMA, controlling PPE. Now, he's undermined the U.S. Postal Service and installed a GOP fundraiser to control it. Control of the Postal Service is control of vote by mail. We're not going to let Trump get away with dismantling the USPS. Well, I hope not. I'm not so sure. The Navajo Nation has the most coronavirus infections per capita in America. The health system is overwhelmed. Food and supplies are running low. Many families don't even have running water to wash their hands. We should be ashamed of the inequality inflicted on Native peoples. It was great to see the government launch that program last week to help out Indigenous people, and that other one to help out people in developing nations. I even saw one they were going to assist the Amish and others. Oh, no, I'm being sarcastic or perhaps facetious. No, we didn't bother with any of that. We bailed out the businesses. We're too busy for anything else. Come on. Too busy for anything else. DJ Booth and Insta Gibbs are both sending shout-outs to the mining OG who risked their privacy to sign this message to embarrass Craig Wright and show that he is likely not the Satoshi. DJ Booth saying that it's really nice to see early OGs holding their keys and remaining active in the ecosystem. They're usually quiet, so signing a message like this is notable. Instagib brings up the potential problem, saying, imagine being so hated that a mining OG risks their OPSEC to burn down your lies. They really don't seem to like that Craig Wright. And President Trump is threatening to pull the Republican convention out of North Carolina. North Carolina said that they cannot confirm that there will be no social distancing measures, meaning that the stadium for Trump's eventual rallies would be smaller crowds because they would be spaced out in the stadium. Trump says no. He wants them shoulder to shoulder in the stadium no matter what happens. North Carolina looks like they're not going to deliver him this demand, so he's likely going to move the convention to Florida because Florida doesn't care. Impressive work from Trezor. Just a few days ago, there was word of a customer data breach saying that it affected Trezor, Ledger, and others, that it was a Shopify breach. It also said to have affected Bank to the Future. Trezor, however, investigated the sample data and confirmed that it does not match their client data. They anonymized their eShop data after 90 days from the purchase. So the leak is a hoax. The hackers do not have personal customer information on Trezor users, at least for now. This was pretty great. I don't want to play it and lose views, or lose the rights or whatever. But Knight Rider, this was really cool. She played it on, I want to say the cello or something with every different piece. She played all the different background melodies together, all one person cutting it together. Very cool video. Let's play just a little bit. Come on. So you can see she's doing all the different parts together. It's really cool. Shout out to James D'Angelo. He says, in one of the rare open sessions of Congress during the writing of the universally acclaimed 1986 tax reform, Senator John Danforth, who hated the reform, spoke about the necessity of congressional sunshine. Who applauded when he was done? Well, that's obvious. The lobbyists. So Danforth is the villain here. He's saying, well, we can't do that. We can't put it out public. We've got to sign the conference report now. Why? Well, the reason was given. If we don't do it now, people are going to find out what we're going to do before we do it. And if they find out, they're going to bring pressure on us during the recess. Lobbyists, interest groups, people who have concerns about the bill are going to bring pressure on the Congress. And we can't have that. Now, Mr. Chairman, I don't understand what's wrong with a little sunshine in the government. As he finished his speech, Danforth's voice grew loud and deliberate. There was a moment's pause, and then the lobbyists, who filled the room, erupted into loud and spontaneous applause. Again, here, James's thesis is that when Congress opened up in the 70s under Richard Nixon, they opened up too much, and it actually benefited the lobbyists, who are the ones who are tracking how congressmen vote. Now they can get a more efficient product out of their lobbying money. It's counterintuitive. Everyone thinks that sunshine is great and that private discussions are bad. But when the outside force, the lobbyist, is actually much more has much more money than the inside force, it makes a big difference. So James continues his fight against this congressional reform of the 1970s. Spoiler alert, if you're in the red areas, stay home. It looks like a video game. You can watch the bad choices happen. New cases of coronavirus in the past week versus the previous week. And we've got bright red cases growth of more than 50%. Arkansas looks like West Virginia. I think West Virginia and Arkansas. We've got lots of red up 10 to 50%. That's a big range. But 15 states where they're seeing at least 10% growth in the virus since last week. All of the Great Lakes states up here, including North and South Dakota. Very cool. The entire West here, Nevada and Utah included. Oregon seems okay. Actually, very few places are okay. Oregon, Arizona, Texas. We have the South all looking red here, and also parts of the North. New Hampshire looking pretty red. Maine, very red as well. So basically, this is where the numbers are going to build from, where it's going to grow from. The other thing, I've heard people upset. They said, hey, there's no one on the chart that's dark green. Yeah, there's no one on the chart that's dark green. What does that tell you about the safety of the outside world? But you can make your own choice. Some of us don't go golfing in cemeteries on days designed to honor soldiers, but others do. So there you go. Another great little political cartoon summing up things maybe better than you can with words. Shout out to Adam Back. And we did it. We survived the news. I just want to open up the show for phone calls. If you guys like to call in, I'll keep the show going at least 5-10 more minutes. Try to get some phone calls. Check out what's going on in the chat. It's a Monday morning. It's a holiday, although every day is kind of like a holiday since we can't go out anymore. But what are you guys doing? Are you barbecuing? Are you making ribs? I don't know. I ordered up food from the store. It's kind of exciting. So we're going to get some more food. Sounds great. Checking out the chat. They say, save the women and the children. Yeah, that's what they did during the Blitz. They all sent the women and the children out of London to be safe in the country, if they could. Often staying with cousins or maybe people they didn't even know. While the other people stayed in London and continued to work while they were bombed day after day in the Blitz. Estimation. A distinction should be observed. Estimate, an approximate calculation or judgment. Estimation, the process of approximately calculating or judging. So there's a difference. It's good to know. Gray and gray with an A or with an E. The former spelling is more common in American English, the latter in British English. Both are old, and neither is incorrect. Still, greyhound, Grey, is an invariable spelling. So there we go. Gray can be AY or EY. The latter is the British, grey. Great Britain consists of England, Scotland, and Wales, all three on the island known to the Romanis as Britannia. It differs from United Kingdom, which also includes Northern Ireland. So there you go. Ireland is not in Northern Ireland is not included in Great Britain. That's confusing. Indicated, to be. This phrase is common medical jargon, as in further medication is indicated, i.e. advisable. Better for Dr. X to say, I suggest you continue taking your medicine. That would be better. The other is jargon. Jargon is internal speech, not useful for people outside of the profession. You have to translate it, right? Looks like we're running out of time for today's show. It's Monday, so get out there. Have a good holiday. Let's check one more time. Check out the Prince of Persia journals. Pretty cool what you can do with just some pixels. And look right here. Look how far it gets from that pixelated thing to Jake Gyllenhaal and all the other actors in the live-action Prince of Persia movie. Then they made several new versions of the games with fancy new graphics, and you could jump over better holes with better spikes, and I don't know, things were better for some reason. But in the old days, they just had Prince of Persia, and it was just pixels. There's the guy himself in the chair, taking it easy, working on some games. That's what people used to do back in the day. Look at the door animations, working on the dropping of the doors, trap doors. Good stuff. So check out The Making of Prince of Persia by Jordan Mechner. Until next time, bye-bye.